Everyone, welcome. I hope you're doing well on this December chilly day. I'm here in Atlanta and I just had the best holiday luncheon today with MPI and PCMA. It was at the Georgia Aquarium and I've been pretty lit up the last few days. I got gifted a ticket to the Future Proofing 2025 3-day leadership conference, March, Monday through Wednesday, and then went to the holiday luncheon today. And so I thought the time is right to come on here and share a little bit about things that we're all talking about and that we need to know. So, you may know me as Christy, who is helping with the next generation messaging to build a better brand. And yes, I still do care about that, but at the root of that, that is my passion for preventing miscommunication and being this both sides of a coin kind of mediator that I've been my whole life. I can see what people mean to communicate, and people tend to say, that's exactly it. You articulated it better than I could. And it's this sense that I get that helps me communicate that. And I know that having the experience of traveling overseas, living in across 35 different countries has given me this outside perspective that allows me to see when people are having miscommunications or cultural differences, maybe more than your average person. And so, translating that, since I had the opportunity to speak at IMEX in October with the Future Leaders Forum and the Rising Talent Panel, and having 5 different media publications, including the Events Industry Council, which sets all the accreditations, the credits, the education, saying, hey, this is what's important. Once they reached out, I was like, this is important, you guys. And it's been such a joy to have this conversation. If you're following my newsletter, you've seen that I'm talking about the differences between the senior leaders and this emerging generation. And I'm able to see so many great qualities that Gen Z has as leaders. And yes, they're getting a bad rap for being lazy, unmotivated, and entitled. Perhaps some of them just inherently are, but by large and far, it is a miscommunication of values between the generations. And as much as I would love to say this is a brand new problem, it is not. In the 1880s, Eisenhower was complaining about the next generation being lazy, and Gen Z, who's now complaining about Gen X, who's now complaining about Gen Z. Well, they were the slackers who wore jeans and only created the internet. So this is a problem, tale as old as time. But what I love is that Gen Z is plugged into different values than leaders before them have been. And what I want to share today is a conversation that I had multiple times actually, but one in particular today at the holiday luncheon around it's terrible. We're losing employees to a new Bucky's because they can pay more money and they just want more money. I want to debunk that thought. Gen Z doesn't just want more money. I was having a wonderful conversation, a meaningful conversation, a thought provoking, growth oriented conversation with a leader who's about 25 when I was on my way to this other leadership conference in the car in Atlanta traffic, navigating. And it was rush hour. It was dark already, going through downtown, the heart of it all. There was a concert at the State Farm Arena. I'm trying to go right next door. And y'all, my heart was so full. It was like I was floating down and there was no road rage, no, I'm gonna be late. I was floating on this cloud of hope because of the questions and conversation topics that were coming between me and this young leader. And I talk about purpose a lot. That is a huge one. And I want to put a pin in that though, plan to talk about that. But because this conversation that the leader shared, we're losing these employees to Bucky's, how are we losing to Bucky's? I need to come on here and share and maybe help bridge the gap for any of you that are looking on and saying, Chrissy's talking about talent now. How does that make sense? It makes a lot of sense. And here's why. Gen Z has different values than before. Purpose driven is a huge one, having more autonomy, so not micromanaging. That's a big one too. They also value brands like never before, brand unity, brand cohesion. And in fact, studies show that we want to call this generation the least loyal. They have more brand loyalty than many of our generations before. They have it, studies show, more than millennials, more than Gen X. We think that maybe even boomers are these brand loyalists. Maybe there are fewer options back then. There are so many options today, and Gen Z is going to make the choice to spend their money and invest with a brand who reflects their values. And this is what I've spent the last 18 months helping people with, helping brands understand how to communicate their value in the way this new next generation needs to hear. We talked a lot about messaging. But as I got the opportunity to speak at IMEX, as all these publications reached out to me, as I went to the luncheon today, talent, 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 talent. How do we get quality employees? And it's about the communication shifts. And one of them is how you communicate your value and unity as a brand. So, Bucky's may not seem the logical choice for losing talent instead of somewhere else in hospitality, maybe a visitor's bureau. But when you think about it, they're gravitating towards a unified brand. Bucky's is recognizable. They do what they say that they do. Every store experience you can trust to be the same. And this is what I've helped brands understand. And now I want to help organizations of all levels understand that it's not just about the buyers. It's not just the next generation of buyers that we need to engage by the way we communicate. It is the next generation of leaders, the next generation of talent. And if you're seeing them go somewhere else and you think, oh, it's just about the money, I promise you it is not. Check out my newsletter attached here to LinkedIn, which talks about what they actually value. Money, of course, matters. It is not the deciding factor. This generation doesn't just want more money, but I hear that again and again. That's the rap that they're getting. Oh, they just want more money. We just need to pay them more. We don't have the budget. We can't have the talent. Stop making the conversation about money. Stop it. Make it about purpose. Make it about brand unity. Make it about making them feel seen by the way you show up as a vulnerable and transparent leader. And I know that that part is hard. But if we look at AI and all that it's done in really, what is it? 2 years it's really been out. 2023 was like the rise of it. If we look at what AI has done, it has brought us into a demand for humanity more than we've ever seen before. We went down the technological rabbit hole, and then we're pulling back as a collective like, hey, whoa, whoa, that's too much. And if you notice, there are different skills evolving in leaders and people today in the workforce. We're able to recognize AI content pretty quickly. Maybe not all of us are. Maybe this is a generational thing, but we're seeing the development of sniffing out what's not real. So, this digital native generation that grew up with these things in their hand, to the fact I'm an elder millennial, I remember a life before this. I also know how much it pulls us in. But imagine not having that perspective of what the world is like without it. It makes things difficult. So, this is how we're talking about a cultural clash because they didn't grow up with the same culture that we did. And I love talking about cultures, having traveled to 35 countries. I got to talk about that a lot today. My heart is really full. I love that this wraps into the leadership work that I'm doing because everything's a culture. Curly hair, which I don't have today. I mean, maybe it's a blowout. Curly hair is a culture. It is. Men and women, that's a different culture. Generations are different cultures. So I see it everywhere and I see the clash. And if you're wanting better employees and to engage them, I do have 4 communication shifts that you can learn. If this feels valuable, send me a message. I will talk about it until the sun comes up. But for today, I want you to understand that brand unity is a very, very big driving factor for these young leaders today. They want to work for a recognizable brand, something that has that presence and that matching, that consistency. And it might seem like it doesn't make a lot of sense, but if you break it down a little bit, knowing that one of their biggest driving factors is being connected to purpose, an organization's larger purpose, what they're doing in the world, their mission, their vision, their sustainability initiatives that they actually follow through on, That matters a lot. It also matters their individual connection to purpose. So, how is going and standing behind a hotel desk or any desk all day making their time on this planet better? They understand that time is not an infinite resource. And they understand that there's a lot of challenges in this world. So, they want to use their valuable time to solve these challenges. And no, maybe standing behind a desk feels like there's not a lot of purpose, but there is. Because if you can help them see that they have a ripple effect in their energy, their communication, how they show up, well, they're going to feel a lot more purposeful instead of disengaged. And if we know that they love this purpose and you think about this brand unity, a big brand like Bucky's or Chick-fil-A, those young leaders, they're engaged, they're polite, they want to work. And Chick-fil-A, I always use this example of all the clients that I worked with, every brand that crossed my desk. Chick-fil-A was the only one that had a developed brand unity, a brand identity. Maybe that's the word that I'm meaning to say, brand identity. But it is this unity of the brand, but brand identity is what I mean to be talking about. And Chick-fil-A had such a distinct one, and so does Bucky's. So you put it under the microscope and you see that Chick-fil-A has a strong brand identity and unity. Bucky's has a strong brand identity and unity. A company that doesn't have a strong brand and unity is losing talent to what they feel is a truck stop gas station, and they cannot fathom that there's any reason other than the money. But hopefully, through listening today, you're able to see that there's more at play. There are nuances that are really culturally valued differences that can help you get better and quality employees, that can help you engage the next level and stop wasting so much time and money on turnover. I've been in turnover type industries for a long time. The only time I wasn't in hospitality, I was in advertising, and they would just say, "Oh, it's just a revolving door. That's just how it is." And it drove me insane because if you were inside having conversations, you would know that it doesn't have to be, and that it was the culture, the communication, all of the wasted resources that made people leave. And when they left, it's not just a turnover cost, which I mean, I did the math on the first newsletter that I did, and it's like $2.6 million dollars conservatively a year in turnover with some hospitality organizations, and hospitality tends to have double the average of other industries. And it does not have to be this way. Let's just have conversations about what your employees value or what you hope to be your employees, your talent pipeline, what they value. And you're probably going to start seeing the same um, themes that I've talked about today. There are more. I've talked about two major ones that are very big. And if you want to go take action, if you're finding this valuable, then have a conversation. Don't do an engagement survey or be sick of engagement surveys. They need face-to-face time. They want a mentor that will help them grow. And that is an amazing thing. Be that mentor, give them face to face time, make them feel seen and heard and understood, which don't we all want that? Loneliness is a government issued epidemic. Americans spend 30% of their life at work. So if work becomes less lonely by making people feel seen, valued, connected, and understood, well, then we're solving problems, making the world a better place, getting better qualities employees, improving connection, improving the quality of lives, improving communities, and saving a lot of money and headache in the time in the meantime. So talk to your employees, ask them what they value. If you need some thought starter prompts, my first LinkedIn newsletter talks all about the workplace profiles and how there's different values. I think today's workforce is a combination of all of them, but you can see them broken down into some categories and groups. And it's been a really fun conversation starter, sending it to leaders on both sides of this generational divide and saying, what do you recognize? Which one do you associate with? What are your employees mostly valuing? And this is a great place to start if you're frustrated and can't understand and only think it's about the money. Get to know these workplace profiles. I can link the newsletter in the comments, I think, of this live stream when I get done. If that's helpful, let's have a conversation. This is my favorite topic. I'm so excited. If y'all thought that I was passionate about next generation brand messaging, next generation of leaders, speaks directly to me because as you guys following me have known, I've been in disrupted industries 3 times in my life, every career path pretty much. And it started immediately as I was getting out of college as a hospitality design student, graduated straight into the Great Recession, and it has just been a very long education in how to thrive in disruption, and it comes down to leadership skills and presence. I can talk about that next time. That's more a message for our emerging leaders that I used to be myself, and I see myself in them so much. And I've had a different life trajectory than most senior leaders and most people my age. And I think that this is what helps me be that yin and yang even more than I already am and able to you remember that show, the dog whisperer, right? Like there's a speaker, the millennial whisperer, because it was a thing when we were the main workforce generation, and now it's a thing with Gen Z. And you just need somebody like myself that can understand both sides of a coin, that can articulate and express things that maybe people who are not as good at communication and have other gifts have a hard time expressing. And I always think of like, how do I say this without making me sound bad or mean or an asshole or something like that? And I listen and I'm like, oh, you just have a high level of discernment. Boom. So political. Somebody told me today that I was meant to be a diplomat, and I was like, nope. Actually, I'm meant to foster connection here in this way, in this time, helping our I don't wanna be like this, helping our country get back to a better place where there's not so much division and there's more connection between families, the parents and their kids, our elders. That's a topic for another conversation. Don't let me squirrel and rabbit hole. But the way that we show up generationally, is that a word? Can it be? The way we show up in communication between our different generations is leaving much to be desired, but the good news is it's all a solvable problem. So, in recap, it's not just about the money. They value purpose. Today's young workforce values purpose. They value brands that have integrity, unity, and identity. Strong brands like Chick-fil-A attract better quality workforce. It has to do with the communication of what they stand for, among other things. Those are your takeaways. Your call to action step: go look at the LinkedIn newsletter if you need thought starters and have conversations with your staff about which workplace profile type they most resonate with. And it's just a great thought starter, conversation starter to get the data, so to speak, of what they value. And it's just like any brand I worked with, any messaging I helped with, you have to know what your audience cares about in order to sell them an idea, sell them a product, or sell them on your company for the long term. So I'm here, I'm Christy. I'm helping solve the talent development and staffing crisis that so many companies are seeing through communication shifts that bridge trust and connection across cultures. I'll see you next time.